This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
There's a Gemara in Shabbos, Kuf Yotes Omid Beis. And the Gemara says like this. Beautiful Gemara, Rabbi. I want to give you a hezbollah in this Gemara. It's absolutely unbelievable. This could change your life. Says the Gemara in Shabbos, Kuf Yotes, Kol Mispalel Be'erev Shabbos, talking about the night of Shabbos, Friday night, V'omer, and he says, Vayichulu. Somebody stands Friday night on Shabbos and he gets up and he says, Vayichulu, he says Kiddush on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Shnei Malochei HaShoreis, Melavim Loi Lo'odom, Menichin Yedein Al Roshei V'oimim Loi, Yosei Necha V'chatosecha Techapet, an unbelievable Posek in Yeshaya, Ki Yedua. Says the Gemara that if a person stands up on Friday night and he says Vayichulu, he says Kiddush, or listens to Kiddush, Shem Aideh, two malachim come and they put their hand on his head and they give him a kapara for all his aveiros. Isn't that amazing? All of the week aveiros that he did, everything he did over the week, that's a kapara for that. It's incredible. Says the Chidah. What's the pshat? What does this mean? What's pshat in the Gemara? A person says by Yechulu on a Friday night, he makes Kiddush. He's a mechila on all his averis. We know Yom Kippur does that. We even know Hoshana Rabbah can do that. Maybe even Chanukah, depending on how Hasidish you are. But on a Friday night, you get up and you say Kiddush. Vayichulu, bang! Two malachim come, put their hands on your head. Kapara. What does that mean? Asks the Chidah, what's the pshat? Says the Chidah, and he brings Mekubalim Ayin Mati Moshe. He says in Siman Ches, who explains the pshat over here as follows. Listen very carefully to mamish mind. It's life-changing. Says the Chidah again, b'shem the Mekubalim, Leil Shabbos, the night of Shabbos, as we know, is the Kiddushin. It's the Kiddushin. That's why in Shemona Esrei on Friday night we say Ato Kiddashta. We're talking about Kiddushin between us and the Rabbeinu Shalom. The day of Shabbos is the Nisuin. It's the second part of the marriage. That's why Shabbos day we say Yismach Moshe, which is a remez to Simchas Chosen V'Kala. Suda Shlishish Alashudas is the Yichud. That's why they say Ato Echod V'Shimcha Echod by Mincha. That's the Lashonis of the three Shemona Esrei we daven by night, by Shachris and by Mincha. One is start with the Kiddushin, then we have afterwards the Nisuin, and then finally we have the Yichud. That's why Shalashudas is such an unbelievable time. Says the Chidah Lefi Zeh, there are two Malachei HaShoreis accompanying a person on Leil Shabbos. You know why? These are the Eidei Kiddushin. Every Kiddushin requires Eidim. These are the two Eidim, says the Chidah. The two Malachim are the two Eidim. And therefore, when a person says the Chidah gets up on a Shabbos on a Friday night, as the Gemara tells us, and says, Vayichulu Shamayim, he wants to be Mekadesh the Shabbos. He wants to sanctify the Shabbos, make it holy, make it the way it should be, separate from the weekday. So he finishes off the Kiddushin, and Lemafreya, you were the Chosen standing at the Chuppah, and we all know that a Chosen standing at the Chuppah is Moichlin Loya Kala V'Noisa. Says the Chidah, when a person on a Friday night gets up and says Kiddush, listens to Kiddush, intends on keeping Shabbos, he's mamish the Chosen, together with the Rabbeinu Shalom. There's a Yichud, there's a Kiddushin, there's a Nesuin. Mimele, he's got the Eidim over there. He's a Chosen. That says the Chidah. It's pshat in the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yotes. Unbelievable pshat. Amazing understanding of what it means. But I want to use that before we start the Zman Be'ez Hashem, and we go through a lot of Hilchas Shabbos. I want to give you a little bit of understanding, a little bit of a background of Shabbos Kodesh. Because of course there's a lot to discuss. There's many halachas to go through. But before we get there, you know, Rav Wolbers Zatzal used to say, you know, you always see a good bacha who has a good Shemona Esrei. You see him as he davens well, he has a good Shemona Esrei, he has a good learning seder. This bacha, mamish, beautiful. Said Rav Wolbers Zatzal, you ever saw a bacha that has a good Shabbos? You see a bacha, it's a good Shabbos. What does that mean? He said, Rav Wolbers, we cannot never find such a thing. We can see a bacha, he's steiging, he's davening, he's learning, he's into it, good. But where do you find a bocha that has a great Shabbos? You ask a bocha at the end of Shabbos, how was Shabbos? Oh, it was unbelievable. Really? Well, yeah, I slept the whole time. It was beautiful. So mamish, I caught up on the last 16 years of sleep during every Shabbos. It's mamish gavaldik. That's Shabbos! It reminds me of Shinsha Pinkas Zatzal used to say about Shabbos Kodesh, that if a person plays football on Shabbos, it's the worst form of Chilul Shabbos. He says, Slicha, I don't understand. Which of the Lamates Malachas are you transgressing when you play football? Or for most of you over there, soccer. Or any type of sports. Irrelevant to what you call it. Says Rav Shimshon Pinkas Zatzal, you know why? Because then you miss the boat of Shabbos. You don't know what a Shabbos is. It's not only about the Lamates Malachas, it's about the Kedusha of Shabbos. We spoke about it Shalashulus recently. The Kav Kabbalah that tells us the famous song, which is Agav Chazal, that just one more Shabbos until we're free. Just one more Shabbos Klal Yisrael keeps. Right? Again, we know it as a song, Agav, it's a Chazal. Machrikas Bavlin Yerushalmi, Machrikas MBD Avram Fried, whatever you want to call it, however you want to go about it. But Al Koponim says the Ksav Kabbalah because people make a mistake. They think Shabbos is about the Lamates Malachas and that's it. So what's the problem? I don't understand. I slept all day. I did any of the Lamates Malachas, I didn't have a chance. I wasn't even awake. I wasn't conscious. I'm potter in everything. I'm a shoita, I'm potter from Allah mitzvahs because I'm sleeping in bed. How could you tell me I was over one of the Lamates Malachas? And the answer is, which is Agav Chayodom brings it down as well. That's Chilul Shabbos. Because you don't know what Shabbos is. Says the Ksav Kabbalah Pshat in the Chazal of Klal Yisrael that to keep 2 Shabbosim doesn't mean 2 physical Shabbosim. It means the 2 aspects of Shabbos. The aspect of the Lamates Malachas of Shabbos and the aspect of what Shabbos represents. The Kedusha of Shabbos. That Shabbos is a day that we spend with the Rebbeinu Shel Olam, not with our pillow. Not with our 600 page book that we have to finish, right? There's no phone, right? So you've got to do something. That's not what Shabbos is. You know, we've said this mashal before, we'll say it again. You spend a year in yeshiva and you come back home and your parents are so excited. Yankila! Yankila, Baruch Hashem! You've come back from a year in Israel. You've taken thousands of pictures. You've used my credit card to the limit. I see that you had a great year. Let's schmooze. Let's schmooze. Let's sit on the couch. We're going to schmooze. After the meal, we're going to hear about your year. What did you do? What did you accomplish? Nowadays, it's not so negay, right? Because everybody has the WhatsApp. Everyone knows everything that's going on. They see from your status exactly where you're holding at every stage of your life and where you've just been, because that's the whole shtick of the whole thing. But even without that, right? You come back and your parents are so excited. You come down after the meal, and you've got that massive book. Like page 1. I'm not going to bed until I finish this book. And your parents are like, hello? Hello? Hi? We waited a whole year for you? Hello? You want to schmooze? They're like, no, it's okay, I have my book, it's fine. That's what the Rebbeinu Shalom feels like when we say, I'm going to sleep. I'm going to schmooze about sports, about the news, about the stocks. Who knows? That's not what Shabbos is, what we say. Shabbos is understanding its relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom again. As Rav Wolbe said, how many of us can turn around and say, we had a good Shabbos in a spiritual sense? And that's very, very chashuv. You know, everyone knows the Gemara. The Gemara tells us that Shabbos is a 60th. Many things are a 60th, right? Many things are a 60th. Sleep is a 60th of death. Can you imagine how geschmut that's going to be after 120? Comfortable pillow. Just keep on going, guys. Just keep on going. There's no end. No one's going to wake you up in the morning. There's no wecker, no one's waking you up. Can you imagine? A sleep is geschmack. Can you imagine? It's only a 60th. Shabbos is a 60th of Olam Haba. Shabbos is geschmack, but if you don't appreciate Shabbos here, I don't know if you're going to appreciate Olam Haba either. Because you're not going to understand exactly what it's meant to be. You know, the Chavetz Chaim once came to a town. And they said, Rebbe, you're here, Baruch Hashem. And he said, what's the matter? He said, well, there's somebody here who's Machal Shabbos. Maybe the Rebbe could talk to him. He said, sure, no problem, send him in, I'll go to him, whatever you need, I'll do. He said, Rebbe, you have to understand, it's more complicated than that. This fellow owns a steel factory. Now, a steel factory where they work with heavy metal, they have to light a very, very big and powerful fire. Listen to what he said. He said it takes 3 days to ignite the fire to the heat that it's meant to be at in order to deal with the metal. 3 days. It then takes 3 days to cool it down and switch it off. He only has 1 day to work. So if you take away Shabbos, it's not going to happen. They said, Rebbe Chofetz Chaim, you have to explain to him how he can run his business, that he doesn't have to machal Shabbos. And the Chofetz Chaim said, you make a big mistake. He can run his business much better than I can. I have no idea how to run his business, and I can't tell him how to do so. But if I, said the Chofetz Chaim, can give him the chashivas of what Shabbos is, then maybe he will understand how to change his schedule and change his habit of work so that he will be able to keep Shabbos. That, said the Chofetz Chaim, is the yesod of what Shabbos is. There was a yid in the concentration camps. And in fact, we'll start, first of all, the Zohar. The Zohar says, a gewaltige Zach. Steht in Zohar, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says that the Shechina never leaves a yid on Shabbos, on Yontov, or even on weekdays. It's the lashon of the Zohar. So the Mefarshim on the Zohar explain, what's the Zohar? How can this be? The Shechina never leads a yid during the week, during Shabbos, during Yontov. What does that mean? What during the week? What's during the week? So the Mefarshim explain the weekday means that someone who is in extreme circumstances, he doesn't know when Shabbos is, and he keeps Shabbos whenever he thinks it is. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always with that person. There was a yid who came originally from Lithuania. He was an expert in metalworks. And to the SS, to the army, to the Nazis in Machshamam, he was very, very useful. He knew how to intricate details, and he knew how to do special things in metal that no one else did. And because of that, he was able to roam around whenever he wanted in the camps, even in the ghettos. He had rights to do whatever he wanted. He had extra food. He was very valuable to the SS. One day, this Yid sneaks in to the cabin of the Klosenberger Rebbe, Zatzal, and he comes in and says, Rebbe, I have a big problem. He says, for my work, I have to be Machal Shabbos. I have to Machal Shabbos. There's nothing I can do about it. But he says, what I want to do is I want to transfer my work to schlep big logs. They take trees and they fell the trees, the axes, and the trees fall, and to schlep them. It's very, very hard, back-breaking labor. He wasn't used to that. He was used to easy labor because of his work. He was able to do whatever he wants. But he said, this way I won't be Machal Shabbos. If I transfer my work to being schlepping trunks of wood, whatever, I want us to Machal Shabbos. And the Rebbe said, how are you going to do that? You can't just decide what you want to do. They need you. He said, yeah, I'll burn my hands. And once I've burnt my hands, I won't be able to anymore work with the metal that I work in. They're going to have to change my work to something, and they'll do that, and at least I won't be Machal Shabbos. And the Rebbe said to him, it doesn't work that way, because people don't last more than a few days in such work. You're putting yourself in a situation that you'll probably die. You're not allowed to do that. But the Klosenberger Rebbe said after that, he said after he saw a Yid like that, he understand what it means. A Yid that's moise nefesh for Shabbos. A Yid that's moise nefesh for what Shabbos represents. Yes, it's not always convenient. Yes, it doesn't always go exactly the way we want it to go. And whatever it is, and we don't always even feel it. Sometimes people complain, I don't feel it. Sometimes you have to do it anyway, even if you don't feel it. Because the Kedusha of Shabbos, what Shabbos has to offer in our lives, is something so incredible. And that's why Dafka wanted to start with this Hakdama before we go any further and discuss the Malachas itself. Shabbos, as we know, is the Yesod of Yiddishkeit. How do we refer to someone who's a from Yid? We don't really refer to a Yid as, he's a Shem Tefillin, he's a Shem Kashrus. We don't say, maybe we'll mention those things, but that's not really, he's a Shem Shabbos. Shabbos is the Yesod of a Yid. And Shabbos, again, doesn't just mean the Lamatas Malachas, it means the Kedusha of Shabbos. That Shabbos means something to you. That's what Shabbos is. The Yishalmi in the Dorim Perek Beis tells us that if a person keeps Shabbos, it's Keneged Kol HaMitzvahs. Shabbos is the Yesod of Yiddishkeit. The Pirkei Rebbe, which Be'etzim is a Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yutes, tells us that if a person keeps Shabbos, Mach Kaporos of all his Averos as well. People are looking for success in everything. People travel the world to go to Kvarim, to go to Tzadikim, and it's beautiful, and they should. But just so they should know, Chazal tell us Shabbos has every bracha that you want in the world. Every bracha that people will do anything in the world to put the red string 7 times around the kiva, run around the world, whoever it is, wherever it is, they'll be there. Because I heard that there's a skula if I go there. Rabbi say Chazal tell us. There's no art school book about it in a Hanami, but there's a Chazal. And the Chazal says that Shabbos is the makor of every bracha in the world. Whether it's Hatzlacha, whether it's Parnasa, whether it's Shidduchim, whether it's health, it's all contained within Shabbos. Chazal tell, it's not me, the Chazal Rabbi say. I'm not coming to tell anyone any chidushim. I'm just reminding you, Shabbos is the makor of every bracha in the world. Everybody wants bracha in their life. The way to have bracha is to keep Shabbos. And that's two parts. That's the lamates melachos and the kedusha of Shabbos. Now I want to start like this. We talk about melacha. We've got a lot to do, Rabbi. Sunday we've got a very, very exciting share. I wouldn't miss that if I were you. But we've got a lot to talk about Shabbos. And people often ask, is this really a melacha on Shabbos? Like, come on. Is that really what the Rebbeinu Shalom cares about? I switch on a light, don't switch on a light. What does it mean? So I want to tell you a modic thought from Shimshon Rov Hirsch. It's a Kav Halacha Beis Hora'ah. What's Osir on Shabbos? There's two things. There's melacha and there's avodah. What's Osir on Shabbos? Melacha, not avodah. What's the difference between melacha and avodah? The melacha is what the Torah says don't do. It doesn't say don't do avodah. What's the difference? So Shimshon Rov Hirsch al Torah writes, because avodah is from the lashon eved. Eved is a slave. What's a slave? A slave that does his master's, whatever his master says. He's a slave. He does whatever he's meant to do. The master says schlepp this, he schleps that. That's avodah. That's lashon eved. Avodah is not asa on Shabbos. You're allowed to schlepp tables left, right, and center the whole day. You're schwitzing, you're sweating, no problem. Maybe it's not within the spirit of Shabbos, but halachically, you're okay. What the Torah said is asa is malacha. Malacha, says Rav Shimshon Rov Hirsch, is from the lashon malach. What's a malach? A malach is someone that came down to the world somewhere and has a message to do and has a tachlis. He has to do something. Every malach in the world has to accomplish something. That's malacha. Malacha is an accomplishment. And every one of the lamates malachas, every single one is an accomplishment. They're not avodah, it's not work, it's an accomplishment. When you have a bowl of cucumbers and tomatoes, and I do not like tomatoes, and I take the tomatoes out of that salad, and now enough for the cucumbers, I have fixed up the salad, I have actually accomplished something. When I, whatever it may be, squeeze a lemon, whatever, I have accomplished something, I've got the juice from the fruit. Whatever it may be, we can go through all of them, which we're not going to now, but there's an accomplishment. That's what a malacha is. And that's what we have to do, as Rosh Yeshiva Pinchas Zatzal writes. People complain sometimes about Shabbos, there's so much detail. Oh gosh, it's not just lamatas malachas, there's hundreds and hundreds of halachas within the 39 malachas. Possibly more than any other halacha that exists within Klal Yisrael's halachic, scope. What's the pshat in this? So Shimshon Pinchas says the following. And he says, it's interesting because every Yom Tov has its mitzvah. Right? We know we have Pesach that has the mitzvah of matzah, amongst others as well. Sukkah, sitting in the Sukkah, Dalet Minim. Shavuos, the cheesecake, Baruch Hashem, every Yom Tov has its, mitzvah that we're oisik in that mitzvah. What's the mitzvah of Shabbos? What's the mitzvah of Shabbos? To relax? To eat? That's a big chalik, that's true. Oinig v'kovod is beautiful. But what's the mitzvah of Shabbos? So Shimshon Pinchas says, Shavas means to rest. Resting means from Malacha, the way the Rebbeinu Shalom rested, as we know, on the seventh day. And therefore, says Shimshon Pinchas, everywhere you go, whatever you do, you'll meet Shabbos. There is nothing that you can do on Shabbos that you won't meet Shabbos. Whether it's tying your shoes, whether it's washing your hands, whether it's picking a tie, whatever it is, at any time during Shabbos, you will always meet Shabbos. And that's the mitzvah of Shabbos, to meet the Rebbeinu Shalom wherever you go and whatever you do. Let me end with two last things. Rav Novid Zatzal, Shmir Shabbos Kol Choseh, said over Gavaldige Yesoid, he talked once about his experiences from the Holocaust. And he talked about one time, I think we might have mentioned it once before. He talks about the time when his father didn't feel very, very well. And they prescribed a certain medicine for his father. In addition, the doctor prescribed, remember the Maisa? Prescribed a certain poison for some of the insects that were going around the house. So one of the kids went to fetch it before Shabbos. And they got both medication for the father and the poison for the insects. The father on Shabbos afternoon was claiming, should I take, should I not take, do I have a heter to take? Medication on Shabbos is not poshish and chavches. He was thinking about it. And at one point he said, I think I'm going to take it. Then he said, what, I'm not sick enough, I'm waiting till Motzei Shabbos. When he got Motzei Shabbos, it was much more light, he was able to see, and he saw that which he was going to take was the poison for the insects that would have killed him. Said Rav Novid Zatzal, the kedusha of Shabbos, the melacha of Shabbos, Shabbos Kodesh, saved his life. And that's the yesod that we have to remember. Rav Shlomo Shadron once said a gavaldige yesod, and I think we'll end with this. He used to bother him that it doesn't bother people about Chilul Shabbos. It used to bother him. And he said once over, Rav Shlomo Shadron was once walking on the way to Sheh, And he picked up what the Olim was saying as he was walking to the podium, as he was walking to speak. And he was busy, the Olim were busy with the price of the loaf of bread. They were busy that the loaf of bread have gone up, it's not fair, taxes and this, Meichatesa, what's going on with our country, how can they put up the slice of bread, it's not right. And Shon Shadron, as he was passing, he looked at them and said, it's fine, don't worry, Hashem will help. And when he finally got up to the podium, he said, Rabbi, I want to explain to you what I just said. He said, a number of years ago, there was a boy who fell quite badly outside my house. And I came running out, my Rebbetzin came running out, and we saw he was quite badly hurt. So I picked him up, he said, Rav Shon Shadron picked him up in order to take him to the closest doctor, hospital, whatever it was. He needed stitches, he needed something. And he saw that there were a group of ladies in the far who saw what was going on, and they saw what went on, and they shouted to me, Hashem will help, it's okay, don't worry, don't be nervous, Hashem will help, it will be fine. And as we got closer and closer to them, one of the women realized, hey, that's my grandson! Oy vavoy! What's going to be? Is he okay? Whoa, 1 second. A few minutes ago, when it wasn't your grandson, everything will be okay. Everything Hashem will help. Said Rav Shon Shadron, when this loaf of bread goes up, it bothers you. Bothers you. It's expensive. How can it be? Chil Shabbos, someone does something that shouldn't be done. Boira, whatever it may be. Say it all right. I didn't know. Hashem will help. It's all right. Say it. Big deal. So Rav Shon Shadron, it has to bother us. It has to bother us. Rabbi Sai, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to start Keseda through many, many different malachas, which you have an opportunity to be enlightened to. But we should remember one thing and one yesod. As we said from the Ksava Kabbalah, or if we said it as well, we mentioned the Rosh Yeshiva Beis Dovid. The Rosh Yeshiva Beis Dovid in a few places writes what it means, Kedusha Shabbos. And he writes that, again, without going into the whole sukkah now, the Rosh Yeshiva Beis Dovid writes, Parashat Bereshis, Yisro, you find in many places, that the Rebbeinu Shalom created the world only for 6 days. Only for 6 days. It was only meant to last for 6 days, says the Rosh Yeshiva Beis Dovid. Shabbos came along, Shabbos cemented it in. Shabbos kept it going. Says the Mefarshim and the Rosh Yeshiva Beis Dovid, I think right, that's Pshat in the Chazal. When Chazal tell us that when a person makes Kiddush on Friday night, this Gemara in Shabbos, Kuf your test, when a person makes Kiddush on Friday, it becomes a shutuf to the Rebbeinu Shalom, becomes a partner with Hashem. What does that mean? I'm a partner with Hashem because I made Kiddush. Apida Rosh Yeshiva Beis Dovid is gavaldik. If Shabbos is the cement of the next 6 days, then when I get up and I keep Shabbos, I'm cementing in the next 6 days, I become a shutuf to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Rabbi, let's remember the Ksava Kabbalah. Shabbos is not just about not being Machal the Shabbos, but there's a Kedusha of Shabbos. There's what Shabbos is meant to represent. And if we do that, Be'ez Hashem, Rebbeinu Shalom will give us all of the brachas that Shabbos comes with. Be'ez Hashem, on Sunday, we shall start a brand new Malacha. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.